Hello again and welcome to the program. Let's begin in the Eastern Cape because delegates at the ANC elective conference in East London are still in a closed session. That's after the conference resumed after numerous delays. Mbali Thethani is part of our team watching the story. She joins us now live. And Mbali, the last time we touched base with you, in fact, there had been some kind of break, a break which I imagine has been needed given the stop-start affair around this conference. Get us up to speed with what's taken place so far.
Certainly, and the last time we spoke, indeed, some of the delegates here did break off for lunch, and I do understand now that they are beginning to make their way back into the main plenary hall. Of course, you would know that there's still that issue around the adoption of the credentials. It has not been done. We understand that there have been a number of disputes which have been raised by the delegates inside this conference, and one being in particular being the position of Andile Lungisa. You would know that he is indeed on the slate of Madikizela. He has been touted as somebody who is expected to be nominated for the position of Treasurer General in this province. But of course, we know that this issue has been raised inside here. You would know that he had a number of issues when it comes to his criminal record. We understand that he is indeed out on parole. He was arrested, but of course it's something that has been raised. And when you look at the issues around the ANC and its step-aside regulation, some delegates are calling for him not to be able to attend this conference and participate in, of course, the deliberations which are taking place, where some saying that he is indeed, he has a criminal record, and of course he is out on parole. But just to also give us a bit more insight in terms of what has taken place today so far, we are joined by Mesuli. He is also one of the PTT members in this province. I understand that, things have gotten hot and heavy when it comes to the adoption of the credentials by the members here in the Eastern Cape.
Yes, very typical of any provincial conference. You will recall that the process of the adoption of credentials has to do or is a culmination of a work of branch general meetings that happens in hundreds before the conference. So it goes without saying that ordinarily before adoption it becomes some bit of a mountain to climb, but nothing extraordinary.
When it comes to some of your members who are indeed facing criminal charges, there's also an issue around those who have criminal records. We know that proceeding to this conference, there were also issues around step aside. Some members have been cleared. How important is it for you as a party to deal with these issues which have been raised around some of your delegates who are vying for positions to be nominated with criminal records leveled against them?
Yes, the issue of the step-aside principle is just part of the renewal project of the African National Congress. It has no specific inclinations relating to any individual or possibility of them being elected or otherwise. But as a matter of fact, we all know that as members of the ANC, we are bound by the step-aside principle once we have been formally charged or indicted in courts of law.
Can we expect now that you will be back in session? We know that the Disputes Committee has been dealing with a lot of those disputes which have been raised just before you broke off for lunch. Can we expect, these credentials to be finally adopted and to see this conference begin to vote in that top 5 leadership?
Yes, the process of the adoption of credentials is not necessarily a process of disputes. It's about the numbers of who is expected and who is here and who is not here. So it sometimes happens that people could talk to issues of disputes, but as a matter of fact, prior to any conference, there are processes of resolving disputes at the level of the branches up to the national office. So the credentials process is a matter of ensuring that all those who are here and understand who are supposed to be here and who's not here, and that is all it is about.
Conference is usually a game of numbers when it comes to those who you have been linked to, the likes of the outgoing chairperson of this province, Oscar Mabuyane. When we look at the support group and the support base for the person that you want to lead this province, how are your numbers looking like?
They are very beautiful. Having mentioned earlier on that the campaign about Mabe getting back to office is a product of proposal from branches of the African National Congress. Now, this is the day where that will be proven, because branches are here, delegates are here, the outcome will speak for itself.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, that is Mesule. He is one of the PTT members and also a regional secretary here in this province. Of course, saying that we are expecting these members, indeed, after they are done with the adoption of the credentials, Ayanda, to begin to vote in some of the members that they want to lead this province. And I must say, it has been quite a very interesting conference to observe, with some saying that when it comes to the position of Oscar Mabuyane, who is vying for chairperson of the ANC in this province, some are saying Uyabuya, meaning he's coming back, and others are saying Agabuyi. So it will be quite interesting to see whether he retains his position or indeed he is removed by Madikizela, who's also eyeing that position in the province.
Yeah, and because of the court interdict that was brought forward by, let's call them, factions of the ANC yesterday, this conference that you're watching has now had to be extended, which is now meaning that it will end tomorrow. What kind of, I guess, appetite do you reckon there is where you're at for just how long this conference has become?
Well, indeed, Ayanda, of course, we've seen this conference being marred by more delays, and delays which have been merely caused by that court action because of the disputes which have been raised preceding this conference. And these are disputes in Khubusana as well as delegates from Krithani. So this is something that the courts have indeed dealt with. I must say, just being here last night when we saw that court verdict coming out from the East London High Court, a number of the senior leaders here in the province, as well as some of the delegates who are indeed on the side of Oscar Mabuyane, were really quite jovial by that court outcome. And indeed the ANC itself saying that as the ANC, they've been taken to court on numerous occasions, and they are indeed, of course, happy that has been resolved. I'm just going to quickly bring in Pule Mabe. He is the spokesperson of the ANC and also part of the delegation here from the NEC. Pule, so far, as the ANC, we've seen this conference officially get underway. Your thoughts?
Yes, everything is going as planned. You can see it's a big conference. You are having well over 1,800 delegates, including non-voting, who are here. So you need to make sure that in your processes you are quite thorough. When we went for lunch, there would have been an issue on credentials. The credentials committee, together with the regional secretaries, would have said to really do that kind of a cleanup. But we are quite confident that when conference arises tomorrow, it will have produced what it was convened for, which is to make sure that it renews the mandate of the leadership that will have emerged through a democratic process. Adopt a program of the African National Congress in the province of the Eastern Cape, because the ANC is also government in this province. So a conference of the ANC takes interest and really deliberate the kind of a program that must be envisioned by its own comrades who are in government.
Just before the break, we saw when delegates broke off for lunch, there were indeed disputes being raised by some of your members here in the Eastern Cape. And of course, we know that the disputes committee then had to go and sit and deliberate once more on that verification. And of course, when it comes to some of those problems being raised here before these credentials are adopted, another issue coming out from this conference is the issue around Andile Lungisa and, of course, the criminal charges, or, one would say the criminal record in which that he has, because he is indeed out on parole. And some are saying that he should not participate in the deliberations of today because of the issue around step-aside regulation. How has it been for the ANC to deliberate when it comes to that issue of Andile Lungisa?
Well, Mbali, you are asking me to answer questions about things that happen in the closed session of conference. Let's just start there. As a matter of principle, it's not correct, because credentials The reason why we remove yourselves, media people, during credentials is because that session is called a closed session of conference. Now, I'm not going to come out here and share with you what happens in a closed session of conference. I mean, I will be going against established values and norms of the African National Congress. Any issue that is discussed during the closed session of conference is not for the media. Those that are telling you are doing so through something called leaks. Because if we wanted you to participate in that section of conference, we would not have removed you. Every time when we deal with credentials, we remove members of the media. That session is called a closed session. Any other thing that you are being told, I'm not at, it's not my position to really confirm or deny those things, because they would have been dealt with by the closed session of conference.
Have you, as the ANC, dealt with the disputes before, which were raised before the break-off of lunch?
Well, it's matters of credentials. We have got the credentials committee, which I said is sitting with regional secretaries to really do the kind of cleanup that conference would have directed them to deal with. Once that work is done, they will be coming in here at plenary to give delegates a report on the outcomes. If there are any further deliberations, they will deliberate, ultimately adopt credentials. Once those are adopted, then you then take the organizational report. It's important. People who must adopt the organizational report must be delegates from branches. So that's why before you get there, you start by adopting credentials. Because you need to make sure that when you deal with the organizational report, you are really in a fully coordinating conference.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, that is Pule Mabe there. And as you heard it, didn't want to really touch on the issues happening inside this conference when it comes to some of the contentious issues which have been raised by the delegates attending this conference. And I must say, those are issues that are going to be quite problematic when it comes to dealing with the voting processes and the nominations, because indeed the issues around Andile Longisa as well as Terence Ntutu, who are on the slate of Matikizela, are really causing some sort of a problem to seeing, these issues being ironed out just before these credentials are adopted, because you would know that credentials are really quite a contentious issue for delegates to move forward and seeing that nomination take place. But of course, we will be keeping our ear on the ground to tell you what really is taking place here. And I understand that delegates will continue to be in more closed sessions, those sessions which indeed the media cannot be allowed inside as they deliberate.
Yeah, absolutely. The internal machinations in the ANC in Mbali almost being more interesting than the outcome of such conferences. Thanks very much indeed for that update. Mbali Thethani, live to us there from East London. All right.